Welcome to the Empowered Entrepreneur Show. Discover your life's purpose, reprogram your mind for success, and attract an abundance of paying clients to your business. Now, here's your host, Tom Tenaglia.
Aloha, Empowered Entrepreneur. I am Tom Tenaglia, and you're listening to the Empowered Entrepreneur Show. And today I want to tell you about how a company got myself and others to change to a company that, well, at least I've never heard of before. And yet the company that we were doing business with is a very well-known brand that I'm sure you would have heard of. The lessons in this is, well, I mean, how you treat your customers, how you resolve customer service issues, and how you reward those who have been with you for a while, how you thank them. Because this particular company, one of the products that they made, still make, is basically fitness scales, so that you can weigh yourself, you can get some of your biometric data and stuff like that. Body fat percentage, weight, that type of thing. And the scale that I have, I think I bought maybe 4 years ago, maybe 5. And it's worked very well. It's a smart scale. And recently I got an email from the company that said, your scale's batteries are low. Okay. So I replaced the batteries and, didn't notice anything different. The scale turned back on and whatever. I tested the batteries though, and the batteries weren't actually low. So I didn't think anything of it at the time, but I'm like, I don't know why the scale would think to tell me to change the batteries. So then I go to use the scale and it gives me an error. So the only thing that changed were the batteries. So I'm like, okay, why is it giving me an error? This doesn't make any sense. Took the batteries out again, the new ones, put the new ones back in. That brought it into setup mode. And when I went to the website to add the scale, or to at least, the scale was already in my account, but I'm like, okay, I can go try to add it back in or whatever. It said, well, your scale's end of life. You can't actually add it back in. It said something slightly different. It said, you're trying to add a really old scale or something like that. And I'm like, so it's not even going to let me do that. Searched the help document a bit, found a link that let me reconnect to the scale and get the scale back on the network. I don't know why it even did that. And then it kept producing the error again. It wouldn't produce the weight. Now, up until the time I had changed the batteries, it was working just fine. And so it's interesting because then I did some searching for the error, and I found a very similar set of experiences from other people that said it was only after a battery change, and it only started happening after the scale went end of life, that we've changed the batteries numerous times since. And that's true. And so I'm like, wow, okay, this is very interesting. And then somebody said, oh, well, I just purchased, their new model of the scale and it works great, da, da, da. And then there were some other people, one in particular, that was like, well, I mean, if that's really the solution, like that's just not, basically saying that that's not cool. And somebody had said, you know what? Like this was a support forum where the company was helping out, supposedly, and their solution was, well, just weigh yourself 5 times and see if that fixes the issue. And about, I don't know, a dozen or so people all responded saying that doesn't solve the problem. And it didn't for me either. So then somebody said, well, you know what? Since they're not willing to help, here's a smart scale that I've been using. It actually syncs into the same account that we have here with this company. Why not just use that? And so I bought one of those. I'm just like, I don't even know this company. But you know what? I'm willing to give them a shot. I'm willing to, if a company produces a product, their whole product is the hardware. not the online community, not the brand name recognition, not any of that. I'm willing to give them a chance to see if they take care of their customers any better. Certainly wasn't going to go buy the next model scale though from the first company. It didn't make any sense because in the day of these technologies, right, they could send firmware updates to keep the scale up to date. Now, if there was a set of features that a new model had, right, then, and if I didn't want those features, well, then I wouldn't have to upgrade. But you shouldn't have to force an upgrade because you can just send out a firmware update, to keep things going. And at the end of the day, pretty much everything was still working anyway. There's no reason that I know of that they had to deprecate the hardware, especially since it's not like the hardware was just constantly like, it's not like it mattered that I had a scale or not to them. So it just seemed like it was we're going to force the what's the word? The idea that the scale is no longer, we're going to force its ability to no longer be a legitimate product offering. We're going to force it out of here, force its I'm sure you're thinking of it. For some reason it escapes me. So then it's like, well, why? To just try to get people to buy more product? I am sure that there are some other consumer electronics that do stuff like that. I am pretty sure. I had a toothbrush that after so many times using it, it would break, and I got the same model and it did the same exact thing. There is a strong possibility that it's programmed to do that. Because I know I know a consumer electronics company that does that exact thing. They say that the device they make works, for so many uses, and when you ask them about it, you're like, well, what makes it break? And they're like, oh, we just program it for that. I was like, wait, what? So they're building in to hardware products that would survive. They're building in software limitations. Okay, whatever. So yeah, if I have to change the scale and update the scale, then I'm going to go with the other company. So this is a well-known company that isn't resolving the customer's issues and effectively may have forced the product to no longer work, right? Because then they send an email out to say change your batteries, and what does that do? That forces the scale to reboot, and then it's no longer connected. I don't know. I'm being a little hypothetical here, but my experience with the scale is the exact same as what people were writing on the forum. Minus, I don't think people said they got an email saying to change their batteries. But I tested my batteries, and the batteries were fine. So I don't even know why the scale would say to change them, right? So other than, force me into doing this. Now, if the company had resolved the issue, if the company said, hey, here's an update, or if the company said, here's what you can do, or if the company said, even if the company said, hey, you know what? There's reasons, that technical reasons or whatever, that we can't support the scale anymore. You guys are all having this problem. We suspect it's because the scale couldn't reconnect and yada, yada, whatever. Here's a coupon code to save on a new version of our scale. And if they had given a reasonable percentage off or something like that, that would have been an interesting approach, right? Because they're like, okay, let's help these people who have the old scale to upgrade. Or even if they, instead of saying take the battery, like change your batteries, they sent an email saying, how about a scale upgrade? You've been with us for so long. Let's reward that and give you, these scales are like several $100s. So it's like, let's give you $100 off of an upgraded scale. I'd take advantage of that offer. But the company wasn't even thinking. Like, if the company was thinking, well, how are we going to get people to upgrade? Well, why not just ask them to and reward them for being with you? It seems simple, right? Because otherwise, this is all just perception that they don't even care about the customer, and their only solution is to get the latest version of the scale. Based on their responses in this forum. Their own customer forum. So if that's the case, like you're just, what? I mean, so yeah, your newer customers will buy the newer scale, but are you going to treat them the same way too when you come out with another model? I mean, there was literally no reason to have another model scale other than to try to have people upgrade, and then you do something that comes off like you force the upgrade. It was amazing when I was reading these posts and people were saying, I've never had this problem until we change the batteries after the end of life date or after the blah, blah, blah date or whatever. But why even have an end of life date? And then the support people were trying to imply that you could still use the scale. They just said, weigh yourself 5 times, see if that fixes the issue. So the implication there is that it would still work. And then everybody said that didn't do anything. It still said error 5 times. Right? And they left it at that. And they marked that as the answer in the thread. I'm like, people are telling you that's not the answer. So I don't know if I don't know what it is, what the company was thinking, what the product people were thinking, right? Like, oh, well, how do we get people to buy more of our products, or how do we get people to buy some of the other things that we have, or upgrade to things that they have? I mean, there's other ways of doing this, right? You can reward them. You could charge a nominal fee for a service. Although I don't think I would pay a monthly fee for a smart scale service. I actually wouldn't. There's no reason to. Like, so, I mean, as far as I know, there's no reason to. I mean, hopefully they'd have some basic features. You know, just okay, we'll record your weight and body fat percentage and keep track of it for you. We'll do that for free. But if you want some of the other bells and whistles and goal tracking and things like that, then pay for it. Okay, cool. I mean, whatever. Like, there's other ways of monetizing. But all they did was get the people to think, oh, well, there's other smart scales that actually sync with this same cloud provider, right? So, you know, they don't charge for syncing to them, because that's how they also get their brand out, right? Because everybody who makes a product that syncs with this provider gets to say, hey, you can sync your device with such and such and such and such and such and such, and they can name all the different fitness sites. And that's a way for the fitness sites to get their brand out there. If one of those fitness sites started charging for syncing, nobody would use them. They would just sync to one of the other sites. Now, if they all charged, it might be a little different. You know, but I'm not trying to say they should. I actually don't think they would. I mean, people that are into fitness do pay for a lot of things, though. Between gym memberships and supplements and food trackers and, you know, other scales, food scales and stuff like that. So it was just interesting to realize that now the perception is that this company is just going to make your tech kind of age out and, you know, not even be valid, even though it was just a scale, literally a scale. Like, it doesn't change. I mean, sure, there's some technology enhancements that they could do. They could either do that with a firmware update, or if it's a hardware limitation, well, fine, but then make it known what the limitations are, you know, and whether I can continue to use it or not. There was nothing in my environment that would have prompted a change of the scale, right? So other than the fact that it would just stop working now. So that's very, very interesting to think about, and it got me realizing that it's so easy then for a major brand to just lose customer loyalty, because now there's these other smaller brands that if they treat customers right, then if the larger brand doesn't make things right with their existing customers, then people will just go to the smaller brands. They get the same value. In fact, they might even get more value. So it'll be curious. I'm curious to see how the newer product works. It's on order. We'll see how the newer scale works, and we'll see how my experience is with that company and that company's website and everything, and how it syncs into the existing site that I'm using and everything. So, I mean, we'll see. The point is, my desire to test that out and take a chance, right, at a different company, a company I never heard of, you know, it was made justified by the sheer lack of consideration that the name brand, a major company in this space, was demonstrating, right? So, like, I know that if I had upgraded the scale with the actual brand name company, that it might go end of life in a couple of years too, and then auto break on its own. I mean, it might not, but why would I take that chance? I rather take a chance with a newer company that's going to over deliver with customers potentially than the same experience, because now it's not a 50-50 chance, right? If they do it with one product, they're more prone to doing it with the next version of that same product. Because like I told you with a toothbrush, I bought the same toothbrush a couple of times and it did the same thing. After so many times using it, just turned off. It just stopped working. Right? So, and I know from other consumer electronics companies, they do program limitations into many things. So I took the chance. So it's like, okay, so what can you do then as you continue to grow to continue to reward the customer and just being honest and transparent with the customer, right? So if you want them to upgrade for various reasons, give them the benefits that are benefits to them, right? And reward them and give them some sort of coupon, discount, whatever, that's actually beneficial to them, not just like, oh, we're going to give you 10% off or whatever. It's like that's not going to move the needle for me for a couple of $100 scale, 10% reward. Why? I don't need to do that. But if you say, oh, well, we'll give you $100 off, then I'll upgrade, So I don't know, maybe the scale only costs them $50 to make and they sell it for $200 or whatever. They give me $100 off. I'm paying $100. They still made $50 on the deal, and they retained a customer, and they over delivered, and they supported their loyal customers over time, right? So you got to make that long play. Yeah, a handful of people who have one scale break are just going to buy the other scale, but a number of them are just going to go change companies, especially if somebody says, hey, here's another scale. The funny thing is the guy posted that new scale on the same forum, and the company was just so oblivious to helping people in that thread. The only thing they could say is get off and on the scale 5 for different times, whatever, that the link to the other competitor is actually still on that forum, right? So it's just it just shows so much about what's actually going on, and maybe they don't care. Maybe they don't care that so many people are going to switch to another scale or whatever. But if that's the case, then why care if people upgrade or not? You know what I mean? Like, so there's okay, how do we get more revenue? But you have to retain existing customers. Now, even if the customers aren't on a subscription, you still have to retain them. So it's like you're existing. Like, I'm making this podcast because of this experience of how a brand name actually got at least me and this one other person, probably others, to just go switch to some other company, because of how they were taking care of us or lack thereof, right? So what a lesson in there. And I don't mention the company names because, in most situations, because I don't think it matters. I think the key is in the lesson. The key is as you get bigger, as you start having that brand, even what are lessons we can learn from these major brands, and the importance of just being transparent with the customer. Literally, like, my experience is being told the batteries are low. I pull the batteries out, I test them, they're not low. I still put new batteries in, and now the scale doesn't work. When the scale literally worked right before pulling the batteries out. So, like, what? You know what I mean? So a very interesting concept here. So really, as you grow, you do want to retain and support and thank the customers that you've had. There's another major company that a lot of people know, especially in the entrepreneurial space. Most of what they do in their marketing is for acquiring new customers, to the point that people that were already customers were saying, hey, you're giving the new customers a better deal than what you're giving us right now. What's up with that? And the company used some sort of hodgepodgey excuse as to saying, well, you're already further along in your journey. You don't really need these other tools. They're like, of course I do. I'm still paying for that other service. You're giving that to these people 6 months for free. 3 months, 6 months, I don't even know how many months, but they were giving a portion of another service for free for people to basically prompt people to move over. They're like, well, we're still paying for that service. Why don't we get it for free? And they just, as far as I know, the answer was just left at that, and there wasn't anything further. Because attracting customers and retaining customers are two totally different things. And you cannot just rely on vendor lock-in. You cannot just rely on the fact that, hey, if they invested all this time, energy, and money in putting their products or services into your software, that they're not going to work their way out of it. I've seen it time and time again, where poor customer relations will prompt somebody to invest the elbow grease to move off of a product or service. So you can't rely on those types of things. You actually have to take care of your customers. And the people that believe in you early on, take care of them. Like, I mean, that's really what it's all about. Like, the things that I do for the people that have supported me from the beginning, I mean, it blows their mind. There's some people that sometimes I release a new product offering, and, depending on, sometimes I'm just like, you know what, this group of people, this particular group who paid such and such for XYZ, they should just get it for free. And what's interesting is some of them will say, when are you launching it? I want to make sure I get in, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, you're already in. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, because of what you paid me years ago. And they're like, what? Are you serious? I'm like, yeah. And like, it just completely, like, I just feel what I need to give to who. And it just, like, these are people that are willing to hand over money. And I just go, you don't need to. You're getting that for free. And I mean, that's not every offer. That's not every group of people, but I make sure that those, often it's the ones that would benefit the most from that next offer, and what did they purchase before, right? So, there's this reward aspect to it, and it's so, it turns them into even more raving fans. Plus, if you get people who are so into your product line, or whether it's courses or whether it's physical products or whatever, and you're giving those people more of what it is you make, then they're even more into it. And then they end up talking about it, and they end up sharing their passion for what it is that you do. And it has that viral effect versus like what I'm doing here, where I'm saying, hey, this other company, in my opinion, I think they messed up. And, they weren't really taking into account the experience that people were having, with their scales. So, I mean, the more you dive into it, the more you truly, you just recognize that there are people on the other end of what it is that you're doing. I recognize that you're a human being listening to me. Some of my podcast episodes are better than others. I'm human too. Some of them I get done recording and I go, dag, that was a great one. Some of them I'm like, I probably could have done a little bit better. And some of them I re-record, and then I just go back through it. I'm like, did I convey that point? Did I help somebody? And I say it time and time again, at the end of the day, if one person gets one benefit from listening to one episode of the entire podcast, I feel like making the podcast in its entirety was worth it. Right? I mean, I don't need it to scale to millions and millions and millions of people. I'm doing it because it's a way of capturing the information. It's a way of helping people. And if it just helps one person with one thing, it was worth it. Right? And so at the end of the day, recognizing that your customers are humans, and it's like, how would you want, to be treated as well? I'm sure if the sales team at that other company, the entrepreneurial software company, if they had thought about the experience of lifelong customers on their platform, they probably would have recognized the same thing. Well, wait, we can't give a better offer to new customers. Like, it doesn't make any sense. This is what I always knew, right? If I give a super special offer during a launch, that is the best price and offer combination that I can ever offer for that. because it's during a launch window and it has an end date. And everything else that comes after it, it has to be different than that. And it has to be basically less. Or if I won't give the exact same thing, most likely. But if I give something new, if I give something in addition, like something that didn't exist before, then I also give it to everybody else who bought before. That's just what I do, right? So at the end of the day, like, the people who always supported me early on are always the ones that are well taken care of. I mean, well taken care of for anything that I produce. And so that's just my philosophy in it. And you can have your own business philosophy. I mean, I think attracting customers and retaining customers are two sides of the same coin. And in fact, I've seen time and time again, and we've talked about this on episodes in the past, where sales teams turn customers over and they lose them a few months during retention because, the support teams or the retention teams don't know the same thing that the sales teams, necessarily did to attract them and convert them and get them going. The best experience that you have with a company, in my opinion, well, I actually think the best experience can be calibrated from a pre-sales conversation. Then the second best experience is the actual sales conversation, which is still pre-sales, but it's, you're working toward a sale, and whatnot. And I've seen, time and time again where people run into the same issues that I headed off during pre-sales, right? So instead of reading marketing messages, I'll go look at documentation if I'm looking at a software product. Or I'll open a support question and ask clarification. Does it do this? Does it do that? Because the best answers I'm going to get are during pre-sales. And if I get what I think are crappy answers or they don't meet the requirement, then that's enough. Like, that's enough for me to say, okay, this isn't for me, right? So, as we go through this, growing our business, it's very, very important to remember the fact that your customers are people, and there's a connection that they have to your brand. And for a lot of people that listen to the podcast, it's a personal brand. So there's a lot of connection to you as an individual. And so for the vast majority of people that I believe would listen to this show, you're going to understand already that that's the case, and you're going to take care of your customers. And it's important to remember the ones that are there with you early on. It's important to always think about the customer's experience. Oh my gosh, there was an email I got from a company that makes physical products, and they said, hey, you can get an upgrade, of the product you have to this other one. And then they put a button that said, click here to see the upgrade price. And I'm like, I don't have time for that. Seriously, I don't have time for that. I already, it's so funny because I already looked at the upgraded product and chose not to get it, but they didn't even realize that I was logged into my account and looked at I don't know. They didn't even understand. A better email would have been, well, hey, why did you choose not to get it? Like, we saw you checking out the upgrade before with a different upgrade. This one was just, hey, you qualify for an upgrade. I'm like, no kidding. That's why I looked at it before. But then they're like, click here to see upgrade pricing. But no, I know you want to force click through. That's not the way to do it. No. And then they do things with forced continuity where they have you subscribe to a refill package, which actually works quite well, but you have to subscribe to it to then unsubscribe from it later, as opposed to just saying, I don't want it now. Now they might have changed that since, but like, just completely oblivious to the fact that I had already looked at the product upgrade. I had already figured out that at this point I didn't want to do it, that it's probably a good future option. Here's another thing that happened. I paying more attention to my buying strategy, they had so many upsells and order bumps built into their shopping experience, because it was like, okay, you add this one product, then a whole page would pop up saying, well, here are some of the other things that complement that very well. And there's like 7 or 8 items on the page. And then I added like 3 or 4, and then I went to the next page, and it was like, oh, well, you can also do this and you can also do that. And then what was interesting is I got to the shopping cart, and what I thought I was paying just a few dollars for, I saw the sticker price on the shopping cart, and I just abandoned the whole cart. I literally was like, okay, that is a magnitude way greater than I thought, and I just abandoned the whole cart. I mean, now, had they sent me an abandoned cart email that said, hey, we saw you abandon your cart with all these items, but originally you added this item into your cart, would you still like to get that item for just that price? And it took me to just a single page checkout for just that product, I would have bought it. Like, I would have gone back in and actually bought it. It's being aware of where the customer is in your journey. So all these things have to do with understanding the psychographics of your customer and where are they in this buying cycle. Because like, I would have bought the original item I went to, but they kept trying to increase the cart value so much, and they did a great job. But when I saw the sticker price, I just wasn't buying any of it. And you might think, well, why didn't they put those as upsells after the purchase of the low ticket item? Well, they would have gotten the purchase of the low ticket item from me. And actually they might have gotten the purchase of some of the other items, because I would have been in the buying phase. I don't know why they tried to build up the sticker price up front. I don't think they necessarily split tested the other idea, and recognizing where the customer would be in the experience, right? So, it's funny, because then I'll also get products, and I'll get an email, hey, you might be running out of this. And it's like, well, no, I'm actually not. A better email would be of some sort that starts asking like, hey, out of the package you bought, on such and such a date, how much do you have left? Like 90%, 50%, 20%. Are you ready for, when do you think you'll be ready for a refill or whatever? And then actually time the, hey, you're running out based on the pace at which they're consuming the product. Not the pace at which you think they're consuming the product, the pace at which they actually are consuming the product. And that's actually figuring out what is the customer experience. So while this episode started out as, hey, here's how this major company got a few of us to change to a name we never heard of, that's just one example of, do you understand your customer experience of doing business with you? Because the more you can do that, the better you'll be. The more you can ask yourself, well, why did this happen? And what occurred? And then how can you enter that mindset of where the customer is, right? Hey, why did this guy click on this upgrade, add all these items into his cart, and then abandon the cart? What if it was because of the sticker shock? What if we send an email saying, hey, how would you like to get the product, the upgrade? And then send him directly to a 1-page, no additional upgrade options. Just buy the individual upgrade and test that. Then if that works, have upsells on the other side of the page that are actually one-time upsells. And what you could do is you could then offer them, for even less, even cheaper than you would have on the normal cart upgrade, because everybody knows they could just go back to the cart and re-add those items in. But if they're truly in your checkout flow and they truly are that one-click upsell, then you might as well reduce the price a little bit, and they probably would have converted me on a lot of things on the back end. So starting to really ask what the customer experience is. Hey, because everybody, it's like you focus on, okay, here's the avatar, here's the person that the customer is, but then you have to know where they are in the journey of being a customer of your business, right? So, and basically in any business, there's existing customers, and then new customers or people that are going to become a customer. So there's the attract, right? The actual new sales that come from the marketing, and then there's the retaining. And retaining is always presupposing they're an existing customer. And so you always have to also consider, hey, what I'm offering for new customers, how am I taking care of my existing ones, right? And how am I rewarding them? And do I recognize, what it is where they also feel like they're getting the better end of the deal, right? The newer customers, in my opinion, they shouldn't get the better end of the deal. The existing customers always should, because they're still your customers. The ones that keep coming back, your raving fans. People want raving fans, but they don't want to treat them like raving fans, which is really interesting. Raving fans are an interesting thing. The more you give them, the magnitude back you get most of the time. Not always, but I mean, usually a raving fan, like, you can give them the simplest of things. I mean, I remember I had a membership at one point. It was starting out. It was a very advanced membership, and so I only had a few people that even qualified to be able to be in it. And one of the things that I did was I surprise mailed them a laminated version of their astrology chart. And the amount of gratitude they got, and that people would carry it around. They would bring it to conferences and all sorts of things. And I'm just like, whoa, this is interesting. Like, it was a very, it was something that they treasured and that they were thankful for it. I'm pretty sure everyone who got one sent me a thank you or told me a thank you, or like they were very grateful, and it was a surprise. And it wasn't even something I knew I was going to do until I realized, you know what? I want to do something, and I kind of want to do something physical. What could I do? And I printed their own charts in color, laminated them by hand, and mailed them out by hand. It was all personal. It was an early on, rather advanced membership that I don't run anymore. I might bring it back, as people that come into my astrology space become more advanced. And so, it was just something to remember, what is it that how am I going to take care? How am I going to make their experience even that much better? Okay. And so just remember, stay humble, no matter how big you get, no matter how much your business grows. It's always important to consider the customer and just always reflect on what the customer experience is, both new and existing customers. And it will really help you frame things as you continue growing your business. And so with that, put those lessons into use, and I'm sure they will pay off greatly, or at least I hope they do. And with that, aloha, hui ho. I'll talk with you again soon. Take care now.
Thank you for listening to the Empowered Entrepreneur Show.